So Rachel actually goes on the call. Rachel, when you come off, just remember to when you like to meet.
It's right after me. So when I see it, all right.
And while you're introducing her, you're going to be like tying up your hair. Right now, so we're like switching that around. Yeah. I think some should
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go run and see if there's like a lot of people still coming in.
Yeah, I just saw like a couple people, but
Okay. I'm just gonna check and then. What?
just don't fucking do it. It will be on when we go up. And before you go up, just like give it a little tap. Yeah, trust me. Yeah. Yeah, when I was trying to talk, you were just like, I'm just
Okay. You got it. I think we can kick it off. The only people out there are like.
okay. So we want to start now?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Kathleen, are you sure?
Are you standing up there with us?
No, just stand.
Okay.
Or just stand up when you're ready.
Sorry, I only have one slide.
All right, everyone, settle down, settle down. I know you're all excited. My name is Anya Morgan, and I'm from Lake Placid High School. I was part of the logistics crew that helped create this and make this all possible for you guys. We also have an art crew and a grand finale crew and a social media crew. So please give a warm welcome to them and thank you to them for making this all possible. I'd also like to welcome those watching from the live stream. So if you'd like to turn around and wave into that little camera up there and say hi. Hey! All right, I'm going to hand it off to Rachel real quick.
Hello, I'm Rachel Wani. I'm from Santa Lake High School, and I just want to say I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time at the Climate Summit. So by a show of hands, who else is it this is their first time at the Climate Summit? Awesome. I can't wait to learn alongside you guys these next 2 days, and we're going to have a great time.
All right. Now, who has been to the summit before? Awesome. It's great to see all of you back. This is my third summit, and this is my final summit. And I'm very excited to see all your new faces and all the old faces that have come back. And I'm very excited to see what ideas you guys bring. Now I'm going to hand it over to Elise.
Hi guys, my name's Elise Pearson. I'm a senior at Lake Placid High School. Let's just all take a second to look at how many groups we have here today. There are 31 names on this list, each made up of amazing student leaders and teachers. Let's just all give ourselves another round of applause. With that being said, we are coming together for 2 days of intense learning, so we have to establish some ground rules. Firstly, be kind. We're all coming together with different passions and are at different stages of learning about climate change. So we want to make this a fun and interactive environment. Secondly, be curious. We want you to ask questions and take back as much information as humanly possible. Thirdly, leave no trace. Please pick up after yourselves. There are a lot of us here and we just want to keep everything as neat as we can. And last but not least, have fun. This is for you, so please enjoy it. For our adults in the room, you will find an adult ally sheet in your folders, which basically asks you to please be conscious of making this a youth-led space. This means listening to our ideas, trying to advise but not order, step back, and provide support only when needed. And this goes for everyone here. Use mistakes as learning opportunities. Nothing has to be perfect, but you won't know until you try to say it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jen Kretzer, the Director of Climate Initiatives.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Wow, I'm so excited. So this is our 11th Youth Climate Summit here at the Wild Center, and We absolutely could not do this without all the incredible support that we've received from our funders. So this is like two slides of funding support for this work. So let's do a big shout out, thank you. It helps make the summit. We are really, really grateful for the support. It helps make the summit free. It helps to support all of our speakers, all the amazing speakers and learning opportunities that you're going to have. It helps to support the work we do all year to help young people thrive, to lift up your voices, and to make sure they're heard. And this, we just could not do it without the support from all of these amazing people and donors and foundations and agencies. So another just huge shout out to everybody. So, the news around climate change, it's kind of rough. You wake up in the morning and you look at the news and it's doom and gloom, it's wildfires, we had a huge storm here last week, there's flooding, there's, another year of the warmest ever. We have, you see the wildfires out in California, you hear about diminishing ice packs, we hear about the flooding, we hear about disease, loss of biodiversity, impacts on public health. And even yesterday, there was a report that came out that 11,000 scientists in over 153 countries declared a climate emergency, warning that untold human suffering is unavoidable without huge shifts in the way we live. It's the defining issue of our age, and the injustices stemming from all of this extend to every corner of society. It can be a little hard to think about, oh gosh, what can I do? What can me as a single person do? But there's actually so much. I want you to take a moment and just look around the room, just do a little look around the room. And I want you to high five somebody you've never met before. Go ahead and do it. Just high five them. Yes. All right, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Yeah. I hope you do have a lot of high fives over the next couple days, because I believe that the climate movement needs a new narrative, moving us from why we haven't or can't or shouldn't or won't to one that is we must and we will and we can, from what we expect to happen to making the absolutely unexpected happen, and from how we will survive to how we can thrive. And that begins with all of you. Each of you, that whole list of schools and groups that we saw, each of you represent, so we have teams of anywhere from 4 to 6 kids, right, or young people. If you go back to your schools, you're going to impact hundreds, if not thousands of young people, right from this day, right now. When I look around this room, I see leaders and change agents, not just leaders of tomorrow, but leaders right now. And actually, I got schooled about that by a former Youth Climate Summit alumni who said, Jen, we're not leading leaders for tomorrow, we're leading right now. And I was like, Natalie, you are so right about that. And I will never, ever say you're just leading tomorrow, because you're leading right now. And the youth climate movement over the last, 18 months is huge. There are young people everywhere, all over the globe, that care about this issue just like you do. And they're coming at it from all different angles. They might be coming at it from the arts, from the sciences, from music, from writing, from wanting to be, maybe they want to run for office. Maybe they want to be an engineer and work on battery storage, like we have some of our alumni doing, or be a carbon accountant. So or work on social justice issues, all of those things, you're all connected around the globe. I want to recognize that we have a lot of young people that worked really hard to make this summit happen. And those are our Youth Climate Summit tiers, and they've been meeting for the last 12 weeks for 2 hours every Sunday night from, I think, 4 or 5 different school districts: Tupper Lake, Saranac Lake, Lake Placid, Northwood School, and Keene. Can you all stand up and receive the praise that you deserve? Yeah, so if you see these guys wandering around, please make sure that you connect with them. So I wanted to also acknowledge, as part of being leaders in this room, and when you go back to your schools and communities, that you can intersect with climate change at any level. it can be just talking to your friends when you get back to school. It can be having conversations with your family. We don't talk about climate change and what's happening in our communities enough, nor do we talk about those solutions. You can move that outward and be thinking about your school, about your communities, about government, about what's happening, what policies that you care about are important to you, and how you can be civically engaged in that. Or you can be part of a movement. Or you can do all these things at the same time. It doesn't matter, but as long as you intersect somewhere, and you're starting to do that right now and today. This is our youth climate leaders, again, big shout outs for them. So I said that, this movement, I like to think we were on trend before Greta became like a thing. We've been doing this work for the last 11 years, and it doesn't just start, so it started here in the Adirondacks, but it's spread across New York. And we actually have some other summit sites in the room. Can I get a shout out from the Catskill team? Where's the Catskills? Woo! So South Courtright and Margaretville have been running some summits for the last 4, did you just have your 4th? 5, oh my gosh, 5 years. Awesome. Who's Curt Hahn in the house? Where's Curt Hahn? Woo! Curt Hahn down in Brooklyn. They have done 2 summits so far, and we're going to be working on a 3rd one down in New York City this year, so that is pretty awesome. Homer, where's Homer? Homer has their next summit coming up in just 2 weeks, and you guys are in your 3rd summit, right? So you don't have to just start here. You can go out and you can start a summit somewhere else. Did I miss any summits that are currently here? No, because we have gone global. So as of today, we have 78 summits in 37 communities. It's really hard for me to keep track of this because it literally changes like every week. And we would love and encourage, if you are interested in starting a summit somewhere else, to join us today for a summit incubator lunch. So grab your food and head to the Find Out Forest. That's the room behind the glacier wall. No one else gets to say that. I love that. And we have a lot of people here that are actually just here to observe and see about starting summits. We have someone from Florida and New Mexico, and down another summit outside of New York City, and from Ontario. So we're trying to get summits started everywhere, and you are all now a part of this global network. And in fact, there's actually a summit happening right now at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. They have over 200 students that are coming together today and tomorrow. They are sending their very best. They're going to be sending us a little short video that we'll show tomorrow. And you'll see our social media team running around because they want to shout out back to them. So we'll be connecting through them online. Okay, so now I have a whole pile of people I'm supposed to thank, so I want to make sure I get this right. So first of all, I want to put a huge thanks out to the Wild Center staff, because it takes all of you and all of them, and they're all out running around doing stuff right now, to pull together and make this event happen. So please, when you see they're usually wearing blue shirts and a name tag, say thanks, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Wild Center staff. I also want to do a huge thank you to to all of the teachers that are here, and faculty that got you here, that made the arrangements, that figured out how to get all of you to the Wild Center for the next 2 days. So let's thank our teachers. And I have to do a really special shout out to Tammy Morgan, Katie Morgan, and Shannon Bartholomew, who have been helping us for the last 12 weeks plan, and not just 12 weeks, but for the last, 12 years almost, to plan the Youth Climate Summit. So please, where are you? I see Shannon, Katie back there. I don't know where Tammy is, but anyway, let's give them a round of applause. Okay. I'd also like to shout out to Caroline Dodd, who's on our Youth Advisory Board, Hannah Katz and the whole Hamilton College crew for a lot of extra help, for Elise for jumping in at the last minute to take on some MC duties. So I hope over the next 2 days you will get so much out of the summit. You will get out what you put in. I encourage you to ask lots of questions and be curious, like those community agreements outline. Meet new people, make new friends, dream big, be bold, and thanks for being here and being part of the solution. Have a great 2 days, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Thanks.
All right, so one of the major goals of the Youth Climate Summit is to make a climate action plan. This is how the Youth Climate Summit is different from other conferences, because you will leave here with a complete action plan. So as you're choosing your workshops, please start to think about how you can use that knowledge in your communities.
All right, now a really fun topic I know all of you like is food. So luckily, we have all farm fresh food for the next 2 days to reduce our carbon emissions. And on the topic of food, I want to go over some allergy stuff. So being gluten intolerant myself, I know how hard it is for some people to find what they're looking for and what they can actually eat. So if you are vegan, vegetarian, lactose intolerant, etc., you get a move to the front of the line pass when you go get your meals. Now, that's so you can get whatever food you need because it's going to run out really quickly, trust me. Back to Elise.
Please feel free to eat all throughout the museum. Eat lunch with the fish, nibble on a snack by the otters, but please keep the farm fresh food to yourself and leave feeding the animals to our Wild Center care staff. Also, as summiteers, we should all strive to be part of the Clean Plate Club. So take as much food as you want, but be sure to eat it so we don't waste any.
Now, I know not all of you are going to be part of the Clean Plate Club, and that is why we have a composting program. The Wild Center actually just got a new composter, and some of you will be seeing that later. Now, the composting buckets are right next to the lines for food, and there were Hamilton students there to help you decide what is and what is not compostable. Very helpful and very nice of them.
So after talking about food waste, we can now talk about the promoting reusable materials. So this morning you all received a lovely mason jar for all your beverage needs over the next 2 days. We ask that you please take the rinse station seriously. You will get one and only one mug and lid. If you lose it, you will not receive another one. Please, to prevent that from happening, write your name on both the mug and the lid. And speaking of the rinse station, right across from it you will see our beautiful art installation. It's labeled Time to Act, and with all the bad reports coming out giving bad news, it's important to keep a positive attitude. As you'll see, numbers 1 through 6 basically depict current problems that we face, while the remaining slots will show solutions towards a greener and more sustainable future. And now I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte from social media.
Hello everybody, I'm Charlotte and I go to Keene Central School and I've been part of the Climate Summit Planning Committee. And I would just like to give a big shout out to my social media crew. I know you guys are all out there. Woo, let's go. So what I'd like everybody to do, if you have a cellular device, please take it out right now. This is not a trick. I'm not going to take them. So let's whip those out. Okay, so if you have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, add us on all of them. Take a picture of this right now so you can add us later. The slide's going to go in a couple of seconds. But we are using the hashtag AYCS2019, hashtag Where's Bill, and hashtag Youth for Climate. Take pictures. Everybody. Let's go. Okay. I guess we're going to move on. You've all had plenty of time. And keep them out because this is our Snapchat. So everybody take a picture of this. Open your Snapchat. Add us on Snapchat. So I'm just going to, while you guys add us on this wonderful platform, I'm going to talk about Bill. Who knows Bill Nye? Woo! Let's go. Bill Nye. So he is one of our overarching themes this year. And so this will bring me to my topic of my next slide. So, okay, Bill Nye. I'm just going to talk about him. You guys seem to know who he is, but if you don't, he is a climate scientist. He has some cool episodes on YouTube and Netflix. Check him out if you don't know who he is. And this is our Snapchat filter. Yeah, so I know every single one of you is going to take a selfie with this and tag us so we can add you on our story and whatnot. And so part of our theme is the time is now. So you'll see that big clock out there. There's a clock. That all makes sense now. And so another way you can have yourself be previewed by everybody here, because we all know that you want to be seen by everybody around you. So you can tag your Instagram and Twitter posts with hashtag AYCS2019 and add them to the slideshow. There is a TV in the common area, the Great Hall, where we all eat and watch it because we like watching it. So your pictures will go onto that screen. So I would suggest doing it. And another thing that the social media crew has been working on, our scavenger hunt. Where's Bill? Where is he? So you will grab your answer sheet from your folder, and then you can keep an eye out for the miniature Bill Nyes, hidden around the museum. I think it's a fun challenge, so you're going to take a picture of each Bill using hashtag AYCS2019 and Where's Bill to be showcased at the summit, and you can turn in your answer sheet to the admissions to get an awesome prize. So I like prizes, so you guys should definitely do it. Another thing is our social media sharing wall. So each and every one of your schools, it has an earth. Your name is written on it. Please do only your earth. And then you can tag your Instagram on the fire flame symbol. You can put your green team or environmental club name on it. You can also put your personal one on it. Yeah, so then everybody else around you can say, oh, this kid's awesome. I'm going to add them in their club. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Now, I know you're all really excited to hear your first speaker, but I would just like to quickly go over the agenda. All of you have a paper version of this agenda in your folders, but if you do lose it, there is an online version up there, just punch that into your phone if you will. Now, I would just like to go over the colors. When you see the blue section, that means you will be in here all together listening to the same speaker. And when it is orange, that means we will be in the Great Hall having a snack or a meal. And if it is in light blue, that means you will be at your workshops in the said locations. Now, I would like to quickly talk about the Summit Incubator lunch, which is today. If anyone is interested in creating their own summit, that is definitely the place where you would like to be. And now, I'm going to hand it over to Cedar.
Hi everyone, I'm Cedar Young. I'm a junior at Saranac Lake High School, and I'm here to introduce our first speaker, Dr. and Professor Curt Steger. Dr. Steger is an ecologist, paleoclimatologist, and science journalist with a PhD in biology and geology from Duke University. He's a professor of biology and climate science at Paul Smith College who enjoys making music in his free time. I was lucky enough to see Dr. Steger present at the Saranac Lake Global Climate Strike on September 20th. Dr. Steger has done a lot of great work against climate change and continues to do so today. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Steger to the stage.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks so much for being here. It's just so inspiring to be involved in these kinds of things. This is a real bright spot on the planet and a credit to our species. So I'll give you about 20 minutes of science, just a refresher. I'm sure most of you have heard this before, but it's always important to have our message coherent, to empower you to do the actions that you want to do. And I'd sort of like to frame it with a saying that comes from the 1800s from a scientist back then called Thomas Henry Huxley. And he explained why science is important. He said we need to learn what is true in order to do what is right. And I feel like in my career as a climate scientist, my colleagues and I have worked hard to get this information that's now going to be boiled down to just a few minutes of really solid facts. You all are, thank goodness, taking this message and doing what is right with it. So let's get rolling on it. We'll just call this Climate 101, Climate Science 101, okay? It's, you can basically boil it down to three things. It's real, it's us, and it's here. So let's just go one by one and show you how we know these things and what are some of the facts associated with this. So one thing that's important to know is out in the general public where you're going to be doing a lot of your work, a lot of folks don't realize how strong the scientific evidence is and how convinced most real climate scientists are of this. There have been multiple actual studies of the scientific literature which show that about 97% of all reputable climate scientists agree that it's real, it's us, and it's here. So a lot of folks might tell you there's a debate out there. It's not in the scientific community, not out of stubbornness, but because the facts are so strong. That might actually lead somebody to ask you, okay, what about the 3%? Like, where are they coming from? Well, we've actually had people looking into that as well. Catherine Hayhoe is a great climate scientist, activist, hero for a lot of us too. Check her out. Anyway, she led a team investigating the 3% of articles which do not fit with that consensus. And basically in every single one, after studying them carefully, and other scientists, myself included, have found the same thing, that it's either due to errors in their procedure or they're biased and they're cherry picking the data that fit their preconceptions. So the science is really, really strong behind this. So you are definitely well supported by the facts and what you're trying to do here. So just some of the real basics. We know that the greenhouse gases, that'd be mainly carbon dioxide, but also methane, they trap the heat bouncing off the surface of the earth, kind of like a blanket wrapped around a person. The greenhouse gases are like a blanket, so that the more greenhouse gases we release from fossil fuels and other sources, the warmer the planet gets, just like the more blankets you put on, the warmer you feel. So that's basically what we're doing to the planet, adding more blankets to the atmosphere. We also have experts studying where this stuff goes and how long it sticks around. And that can be pretty mind-boggling. It encourages you to look from the molecule scale of carbon dioxide to the entire planet scale here. But it basically goes out of the factories and car emissions and things like that into that real thin blue layer right there, which is all we've got for an atmosphere. And we can actually track this in various ways. Most of it, we know, goes into the oceans because that's what most of the planet's covered with. So carbon dioxide dissolves in water just like oxygen does. That's how fish breathe, after all. But the problem is, although the oceans will take some of that heat-trapping carbon out of the air, when they do that, it changes their chemistry. And it's not healthy for a lot of marine life. It basically starts to acidify the oceans with carbonic acid when it does that. So we're actually seeing that happen as well around the world, which is a whole other side to this in addition to climate, but changing the chemistry of the oceans. So it's bad for anything with limestone hard parts like corals, crabs, and shellfish and things. But we also know where some of the rest goes. And it's kind of surprising where it ends up. I've got little air molecules floating around there. We can actually measure about how many of the carbon dioxide molecules, let's say floating in this room or outside, came from fossil fuel emissions. It's about 1 in 8 of the carbon dioxide molecules in the entire atmosphere is now from these artificial sources. But they don't just stay there, and they don't just go in the ocean. They go into plants. If you remember from basic biology, plants breathe carbon dioxide in and they exhale oxygen. They take that carbon in because they use it to make their bodies out of. So they make their saps, their leaves, their fruit, their seeds, all that kind of stuff. So basically 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in every plant you ever encounter is also from fossil fuels. It's a strange thought. The air pollution is becoming the plants of the world. That means, of course, if you eat plants, or if you eat animals or animal products that ate the plants, that means 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in your food came from fossil fuels as well, because it's connected to the world's food chain. And that, of course, means because you're eating the food, in order to make your body out of those molecules, 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in your own body, if you look at your hand, 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in your own hand came from a smokestack or a tailpipe. Pretty mind-boggling stuff. We can trace the molecules, see where they go. It becomes us. So we're not only a source of air pollution, we are air pollution. Pretty weird stuff. Now, it's a little depressing, but it's also interesting because it's, in a way, inspiring because it shows that we're connected to all life on Earth in this way. And that sort of inspires me personally to want to be a better steward of that relationship too. I'm sure you do too. So how do we know it's us? There are a lot of ways we know it's us. First of all, we can just keep track of where carbon dioxide comes from on the ground, and most of it's coming from burning fossil fuels. So coal, oil, petroleum, and natural gas, the fracking and stuff. And we can basically attribute it mostly to that. There are other things, people will say agriculture or land clearance, burning the trees and stuff, and that's certainly part of it. The biggest stuff is burning fossil fuels. And so the largest source of a solution to this is to switch from burning the fossil fuels. There are other ways you can do it too, though. This was hard work over decades of people finding out what is making the Earth warm up. Basically, there are only three things that can warm an entire planet up. One of them is the sun, which does get a little stronger and weaker sometimes. One of them is volcanoes, which can release carbon dioxide as well. And the other one is fossil fuel industries. So we've been measuring all three of those as the temperature has warmed up. And we can do a process of elimination on what the sources are. So some people will say, oh, it's only warming because the sun's gotten stronger. That's not correct. We've been watching the sun with satellites and on the ground. The sun has not been doing anything unusual in recent decades that would explain the warming. So scratch that. What about the volcanoes? Oh, the volcanoes change climate. Yeah, but the volcanoes of the world are carefully studied and they're not doing anything unusual that would explain global warming. So scratch that. Basically, that's process of elimination, leaving us with what we already sort of knew anyway. So there, that's also, people can actually do comparisons. We emit 100 times more carbon dioxide than all the volcanoes on Earth combined over the course of a year, which is amazing. It basically means we're a force of nature as powerful as the volcanoes of the Earth, and in fact, more powerful. Scary, but also amazing and actually empowering if we can become aware of ourselves as a force of nature like that. I'll skip that, we'll just keep going here. Sometimes people say, oh, it's just natural cycles. Well, the Earth goes into all these warmings and coolings naturally. Well, we actually know what the natural cycles are. And we know this from looking at things like lake sediments up in the Arctic, or ice cores from the poles, or tree ring studies and other things that tell you about climate in the far past. That's my specialty with students at Paul Smith College too. We know what the cycles are. None of them explain the recent warming. The things that are happening now, we can actually look into the past, like with the Arctic lakes, and see them thawing out, which they have never done in their entire history of existence. This is unique stuff that we're doing. It's not natural cycles. We do know what the natural cycles are so well that we can actually predict some of them into the future. The biggest ones have to do with the coming and going of ice ages. It has to do with the tilt and the movement of the Earth, like Bill Nye would have told you about if he were here. And so we can predict even things like when would the next ice age happen on Earth. And we know when that would be. It'll be in the far future, 50,000 years from now, basically. But the amazing thing about the magnitude of our ability to change the Earth is the CO2 we're emitting now will stay around for so long. It's way more than just our lifetimes, more than just this century. The CO2 we're emitting now will still be around when that ice age is about to happen. There will still be enough of our fossil carbon floating in the air to warm the Earth just enough to cancel the next ice age. It's amazing the power we've got as human beings. Again, it can seem kind of scary and sad, and of course it is, but think of the power we have to do the right thing when we know what we're doing instead of doing it by accident and doing the damage only by accident. We're a force of nature. So there's a term for this, which you may or may not have heard before, but it's a really powerful, useful tool. The technical version of it is being used by scientists around the world. It's called the Anthropocene epoch. It's a time in Earth history, kind of like the age of dinosaurs and the age of mammals. This is the age of humans, where we've become so embedded in the fabric of the Earth and its ecosystems that we can change it. Rather than seeing ourselves as separate from nature, we're a force of nature. And our job, your generation, is going to be the first one who really gets that, who gets to see yourselves as part of a force of nature for the first time on the history of the planet. So just quickly, when we say it's here, it's not just here on Earth, it's like here. And we got weather records all over the Adirondack region. Here's the temperatures from Tupper Lake showing significant warming about as fast as the rest of the planet since the 1970s. We've got the ice season on our lakes here getting shorter and shorter. Here's a graph of a timeline from left to right as the last 200 years of dates when Lake Champlain did not completely freeze over in the middle in the winter, when it was too warm for it to do so, and that's marked with the little black stars. And you see what happens with the black stars? Through the entire 1800s, there were only 3 winters when Lake Champlain didn't freeze totally. Look what's been happening as you go farther to the right, more and more stars. It's now normal for the lake not to freeze over completely. So we can see that if you're a ferry boat rider or an angler or any of that kind of stuff, you may have seen this with your own eyes. And when we get big, heavy storms, kind of like the one we just had, actually, but our storms, when they are big, are bigger than they used to be. And that's over the last century, and that fits the pattern of global warming. That's a photo from the town of Keene. That used to be people's backyards when the Irene storm flooded through the town and tore out their backyards and destroyed some homes. That's definitely happening. The sea level rise, of course, impacts New York State and the area too. The small, slow rise may not seem all that important, but if it lifts the sea level, when a big storm does show up, it makes the storm surge go in farther. And as we saw in Manhattan with Sandy, just a few inches of rise is enough to tip the water into the subway system and make a big impact. So it's a gradual sea level rise, but it has big impacts. So this is all real stuff, and it's happening now. So again, this can be sad, scary stuff. A lot of folks respond to that, and you'll see this in the work you're going to do. A lot of folks are despairing. They'll give up and say, there's nothing I can do, and it's all lost. It's not all lost. Don't leave and go try to terraform Mars or something like that. Now is not the time to curl up in a ball. Now's the time to get busy. And so many people are doing this around the world now. It's just so uplifting. So I'd say the most important take-home message of all of this that I've been talking to you about is to realize that you are a force of nature. And it's not just a poetic thing, it's true. I've given you the evidence, 100 times more CO2 than volcanoes, strong enough to stop ice ages. This was all done by accident by my generation, with apologies, and the folks before. You all know this stuff now and can do the right thing. So you may feel like, well, the small things I can do, changing a light bulb, recycling, that's not going to change the whole world right away. Well, that's kind of true, but keep in mind that you don't have to change the whole world. These things change you when you do the small things. It keeps you mindful of your place in the world and what your mission is. They're like little rituals, little reminders of doing the right thing when you know what the world needs. And also keep in mind, as you are going to find out when you go home and start spreading the word on what you've been doing here, you have a sphere of influence with your social media, the example of your lifestyle that other people will watch and maybe not tell you they're noticing, but they'll see what you're doing and how you're living, and that will influence even more people. That's how a force of nature works in the age of humans, and that's what you're part of. So when I hear what people like Greta talk about, what I hear is they say the most important thing right now is stand up for the science. So I hope you will do that, and hopefully these basic facts I gave you will empower you to do that well. Here's a good place to find information. Greta likes to talk about the IPCC reports. Those are very technical, This one's maybe more useful and has things you can use in social media. It's called Climate Central, so you might want to write the name down or take a screenshot or something. That's a good place to get solid, reliable information in the mix of all of the misinformation you might hear about. And to start wrapping up here, what I take away from organizations like this amazing Youth Climate Summit movement, the pro-snow movement, and the Protect Our Winters movement, which I've been hearing about from winter athletes as well. Here's some sayings that I get from them. They say, action over apathy, just sitting around, is part of our mission. And progress over perfection. We don't necessarily have to do a 100% solution of everything, but we should do what we can. And hopefully things won't be as bad as they would otherwise be if we don't do anything. So I want to do a little exercise with you to sort of demonstrate right here in the room the power of working together as a force of nature. And how just, even though you may be a small part of this, how exhilarating that can be with a movement like this. So I would like to have you participate with me with a little creation of a storm. Hear the great wind spreading across the planet. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to walk across the front of the room doing little hand movements, and as I point to you, I'd like you to do those things. So I'm going to start out by going like this, walk across, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to start going like this. Start going like this, and the last part will be I'm going to ask you to stand up. Stand up. Use the bottom of your chair as a drum. Like that. We'll go through this and watch what happens when we work together as a force of nature. Welcome to the age of humans. Now, we have a few minutes. I was wondering if anybody has any feelings, thoughts, questions. We could take maybe just 5 minutes, something like that. If there's something really you really want to ask or express, just in the next few minutes. Otherwise, I do have one more activity for you to wrap up with.
I had one thing. Sometimes when I ask say that recycling is
more energy to recycle than it does to actually throw it away, and that more trash is being incinerated than landfilled. And I didn't necessarily know how to come back from that. What's the truth?
I'll stand over here and use the mic. So the concern is sometimes people will tell you that the recycling is basically not worth it and it's kind of a scam and it uses up more energy. In some situations that can be true if the system's not working right. We do have some recycling problems now. China used to take a lot of our recycling and it doesn't anymore. So things like that. It does not mean recycling is not worth doing. Even if it does use up some more energy until we straighten things up, it's important to do for the reasons I was talking about, of doing the small things that matter, that remind you that we have these issues and there are things we can do around here, and to remember that you have a sphere of influence, so people do notice what you do. And so if you do these small things anyway, knowing that it's just a drop in the ocean, and in this case, in some cases locally it may not be the most efficient, in general it is absolutely the way to go. Anybody else got a? Yeah.
Promote their own interests.
Yeah. So the question is, sometimes folks will say, well, the climate scientists are liars and they're just faking all their numbers so they can make lots of money and stuff. If we wanted to make a lot of money, I think we'd go to Wall Street or something like that, right? That's a harsh criticism of science because the whole point of science is trust and also verifying each other's work. So that would basically come from somebody who doesn't know much about science. So the first question when you have any of these conversations is, first of all, see if the person's sincere in their question. Sometimes people just want to argue and they don't really want to hear an argument, in which case I think you're wasting your time. But if other folks really are sincerely asking, then say, well, I'm not sure the answer, let's try to look it up, and think of some scientists who you were told faked the data, and I'll bet you it's going to be really hard to find any of them. No, we don't usually get very rich on any of this, so it's not for the money. In fact, if you want to make money, you sell out and you do the bad science.
Could you please address the issue of the nature of science, especially when it comes to proving things, as opposed to like weights of evidence and things like that?
Sure. So we sometimes hear that we prove this and prove that. That's more from mathematics. In reality, in the real world, you never 100% prove something. That's to be admitted in the sciences. So what you do is you reduce the amount of uncertainty. And so you get as much evidence as you can, and then you make a decision. What are the evidence available? Tell us. So sometimes it's a little bit like guesswork because you don't have much information. In the case of this climate science, there are mountains and mountains of evidence of many kinds over decades all over the world. It's been rare that there has been so much good evidence for a single topic. So we don't have that problem. This is as close to proof as you get. If this turns out not to be correct, then physics, chemistry, biology, and geology are all wrong. That's pretty unlikely. Right? So to express uncertainty, like there's a 0.0 trillion chance that it's wrong, you would always have to say that, but it's so small, it's like saying I'm afraid to go to the bathroom because a meteor might hit there in 3 seconds from now or something like that. It's basically not going to happen. So it's a matter of perspective. Maybe one more. You got one?
Some people say that our impact has already changed the world so much that there is no use in trying. What would you say to that, and how to encourage people on still trying to make a better impact?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point, and a lot of people feel that. Again, I think the best motto is the one I gave you in the beginning. From the 1800s, Thomas Henry Huxley, biologist, he said, we need to learn what is true in order to do what is right. And learning what is true nowadays can be difficult. There's a lot of fake news, fake science, so-called science out there and fake information. Realize, and this maybe is another one of your great challenges in our media world now that you are growing up in and know how to kind of move around in, just don't forget that it's artificial. It's driven by money, driven by emotions, and so you'll often hear the scariest, most angering, frustrating stories coming out because they get your attention. What you don't hear so much is the other stuff that basically shows how much amazing, wonderful stuff is still here on Earth to save and protect and appreciate, because it doesn't make headlines. So don't forget what you're getting in the media is gonna freak you out if you overindulge. It's like eating too many bags of Doritos all at once. Once in a while, yeah, get yourself motivated, but then find out the other stories where there are amazing successes. And if you want one, it's right here in the room. You are living proof, and you can't be deleted with a delete button. You're the real world making real things amazingly happen. There's so much to save, and now's the time to do it. So I'm gonna wrap up here with something. I'll do it without the microphone. Always have to have a scientific instrument handy. So when I was your age, a million years ago, I used to protest environmental things and other issues as well. You do a much better job of it, by the way. Much more entertaining, much more civil and informed. One of the cool things we did was we took songs that we could use as anthems for what we did. One of the great leaders of that idea was a guy called Pete Seeger, who you might have heard of. He wrote lots of folk songs, but one of his techniques was to take a song that everybody knew and change the words so it fit the issue at hand that you're rallying around. So I actually had the honor of performing and hanging out with Pete a bit. One time he gave me this little banjo pin, so he's here in spirit, even though he's no longer with. Thrilled to see this process still works today. I encourage you to do this yourself. Take songs you know, mix up the words to be about what you want to express, and then people might sing along with you. So I am going to pass the torch to you by doing a crossover song with you. It's got a chorus you might recognize.